So if you look on the slide with pattern and progression, these are the two P's in the FITT: volume, progression, and pattern. So continuous bouts versus multiple bouts, that's your pattern. Are they going to do it continuously or multiple times today? In less than 10 minutes will work only in the very decondition, but typically you can get health benefits of exercise with a minimum of 10-minute bouts 3 times per day. So work up to recommendations if people are not there, and that is entirely possible that doing 10 minutes is going to be challenging, or getting them to do, get them to do 2-minute bouts and then 2 10-minute bouts and then get to 3 10-minute bouts per day. And then maybe you'll be able to increase the duration so that they can exercise continuously for 20 or 30 minutes. On the right-hand column, progression. Generally, you want to add and ramp up people about 10% per week. So what can you manipulate? Once again, it's the art versus the science. Frequency, can you add another day? That's probably the easiest one. If somebody's exercising 3 days a week, can we add a 4th workout and then eventually maybe a 5th workout? Can we manipulate intensity? Can we start increasing their intensity? Now, keep in mind, a lot of people do not like high intensity. They don't like to sweat. They do build up lactic acid sooner than what we would. So higher intensity exercise does not always feel good to a lot of people. Can you increase duration? But keep in mind, people do not have infinite time to exercise, and there's a limit to what they're going to be willing to do. Now, I've met people over the years that worked in places, say like the Verizon Corporate Fitness Center. These people only have an hour to work out during their lunch or dinner time, so they've got to be back at their desk. So you can't really manipulate duration because you're working within their lunch hour parameters. So maybe you can manipulate frequency and intensity if you can't manipulate duration. So there's a lot that you can do here. Work with each person individually, work with their schedule. Do they travel a lot? What can they do? How can they progress? And then when they get to where they want to be, we want to maintain and keep them at the appropriate level. Interesting, students sometimes ask about, well, how much can I expect people to really improve? Like, is progression infinite? Are people just going to want to continue to go up and up and up and up? So here is some data. This is actually out of the old textbook that I used when I first taught the class, the Heritage Study. So if you look at people's training programs and their changes in VO2 max, some people worked out, they exercised, but they had very little change in their VO2 max. 10% had a greater than 10% change, so 10 millimeters per kilogram per minute. So some people are just naturally high responders. Some people don't respond much at all. The mean change, 6 milliliters per kilogram per minute, so about 2 METs. That's about what you're going to get on average. So, 2 MET improvement in VO2 max. There are no differences between racial and ethnic groups. I mean, everybody can improve the same way, but there is a genetic influence on your VO2 max. Certain people are just going to have a higher VO2 max, and we've tested people in, previous studies and some of my previous work where they don't work out much at all, but yet they have a really high VO2 max, which doesn't really make that much sense. You think, well, so when we're looking at risk of chronic diseases and the role of fitness, do people who have a genetically higher VO2 max and trainability, are they at some sort of genetic advantage for that? But yes, no, not everybody can be Lance Armstrong. Not everybody, can be, a marathon runner. Yes, you can participate and you can do it if you want to, run a 10K or run a marathon. But, only certain people are going to be really great at it. So you have to keep that in mind. But because people think, well, all I have to do is train hard and I can do anything. Well, no, there definitely is a genetic capability, and certain people are going to improve much more than others.